So you're being very protected at this time in your life right now. And there's a lot of people that had to leave. There's a lot of habits that had to leave. There's a lot of belief systems that had to leave in order for you to get to this place. But because you've allowed all of the purging of the old stuff, the stuff that wasn't serving you any longer to go, you released it, you let it go. You found favor in this divine protection that's allowing you to lead a path that is going to be of wealth and abundance and prosperity. Within wealth and abundance and prosperity, there isn't suffering, there isn't strife, there isn't anxiety, there isn't fear, there isn't these feelings of oppression or suppression. So knowing this and really getting your definitions of what wealth and abundance and prosperity are, when you get that definition very clear, you're able to really determine what in your life is actually in alignment with those principles and what isn't. Now, we're going to go through times in our lives where things are hard. We're going to experience loss of family members, of friends, of different opportunities, of things. But the way that we react to the loss that comes in our life or the situations that happen in our life will determine the effect that we get from it. Just because something happens in our lives that people would, I would say, on a level that is on the normal way of thinking of loss is that there should be sadness and there should be suffering, or there should be this feeling of grief. And those feelings are very valid, and it is okay for us to experience those if we truly feel that we need to. We don't want to deny ourselves of emotions that are a part of the human experience, because all emotions serve a place and a purpose. But we do get to choose whether or not they will serve a purpose in our lives, if they're relevant for us in our lives. And sometimes grief is a very beautiful thing for us to experience, but it isn't necessary for extended periods of time. And depending on the situation, it may not be necessary at all. So there are things that happen in people's lives where people just assume or feel that you should feel grief about something, the loss of a relationship, of the loss of some kind of job, or the loss of some kind of friendship, or the loss of something in your life. Maybe even like a physical situation. You lost the ability to, maybe you're sick for a time. You got some kind of something like you caught the flu, or you caught some kind of cold, or you caught some other kind of illness that maybe requires medical attention on a deeper level. And people will already feel, say, sorry. They'll feel like, oh, I should be sorry for you or the person that's experiencing this illness or this situation or whatever is happening in their life. And also they assume that because we're experiencing these situations of illness in our lives, that we too should be in a state of, again, grief or sorrow or sadness. But that doesn't have to be the case. For our lives are determined not by what is happening in our lives, but how we react to what is happening in our lives. And loss or illness don't have to be perceived or interpreted as a negative happening in our lives, but rather they could be used as a positive. They can be used as something that is beneficial to us. And this is going to require us to kind of dig down a little bit deeper and like really get in attunement and an alignment with what we feel we're called to do in our lives. Now, not all illness and all sadness and all loss is going to feel this way. And if it doesn't feel this way, then we have to honor that within ourselves. We have to honor our belief systems. If we don't believe that getting sick can be a positive thing, then you're not going to experience a positive result. And again, this is like the core principle of the belief systems. If we truly in ourselves, in our heart of hearts, don't believe that something that is defined as a negative, most people would define as a negative. If we don't think that that thing is actually positive, or we can't pull something positive from it, then we're not going to pull something positive from it. We're not going to do it. But if we sincerely choose to consider that perhaps there is some kind of positive that we can pull from it, whatever that illness you may have is, or whatever loss you may experience in your life, whatever negative circumstances may be happening in your life, the negative, it ultimately is going to be determined by how we attach meaning to it, whether or not we define it as negative or we define it even as neutral. It doesn't even have to be a positive. It can just be a neutral. We don't have to pull a positive meaning from a negative experience. We can just allow it to be neutral in our lives and not put a value statement on it, not put a judgment upon it, and then allow more information to come out in our lives. And this is something that we can apply to all aspects of our lives. Perhaps there is one of your friends or a family member, someone you know, has something happening in their own life. And the way they're looking at it is from a place of maybe struggle, maybe sadness, maybe hurt or pain. Maybe there's a lot of feelings that they feel something is being unjustly done to them. And maybe there is something being unjustly done to them. But you don't have to allow that to cause any kind of emotional upheaval within your own lives. Because you understand that anything that's happening in another individual's lives, just as anything that's happening in your life to another individual, doesn't have to be seen as a negative or a positive. Again, on a deeper level, when we start tapping into, well, this is happening in our lives, like seeing that this is happening in our lives, what can come from this? What can I pull from this that is positive? Or perhaps I just allow more information to be revealed before I make a determination on this. I can choose to just allow more information to be revealed before I put a value statement on it. And allowing that in our lives to take a step back before reacting. So this is actually being less reactive and being more conscious about what we want to experience in our lives. Going back to earlier with abundance and wealth and prosperity, there's no ill intent, there's no ill emotion, there's no illness that can come from living in wealth and living in abundance and living in prosperity, unless you have a definition that is included within wealth and prosperity and abundance. But if you have a definition that illness or suffering or loss is a part of wealth and abundance and prosperity, then that wouldn't be the definition of those things, of those circumstances. And there was something along the way that someone had convinced you, told you that suffering and strife and struggle and hard work and all this stuff is a part of you to get to the wealth and the ease and the comfort and the whatever it is. But that's where a lot of confusion can come from. Whenever we have incorrect definitions for certain values and certain principles. So being very clear again with what is wealth and what is prosperity and what is abundance. So this is kind of a question that you can ask yourself. The way I'm perceiving the situation of loss or of illness or of what people would think I should define as negative in my life, what most people would look at and start casting stones at, start putting negative value judgments on, people would try to push away, people would try to degrade, demoralize, devalue. The situation is happening in my life. What would the energy of wealth and of prosperity and abundance look at this situation as? Perhaps whatever illness that is happening or perceived illness that is happening is actually taking you towards a path of some deeper emotional healing that needs to be looked at and purged and released from our system, our emotional system, our physical system, our spiritual systems. But from all illness, there's only more illness that can be manifested. You can't plant illness and get healing. They're two opposite sides of the spectrum that both are required in order for one or the other to be experienced or to be seen, to be defined. We need to have opposites. We need to have the reflection in all across life. In order for there to be good, there has to be bad. In order for there to be white, there has to be black. In order for there to be happiness, there has to be sadness. Like, there has to have the mirrored emotions of every emotion. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be able to experience it. We wouldn't be able to define it. So, while illness isn't a requirement for us to get towards something in our lives that would be of health, we can look at the illness that may come up in our lives for whatever reason it comes in our lives and question what caused this illness. Perhaps there was something that was operating at an unconscious level that we weren't even aware of that invited this illness into our lives. And we can go deeper in it and have it be revealed to us. So that way we can clear it, that way we can purge it, that way we can release it from our lives. Or if this is some kind of loss that happened in our lives, we can dig down deeper and be like, well, what good will come from this loss? This is door being closed. Free up your energy, free up your space for new things to come into your life, better things to come into your life. Maybe you've been in a situation, a job that you just didn't feel connected to, or a relationship that just wasn't working, or a friendship that just wasn't working, or a family dynamic that wasn't working, and a culture that wasn't working. Some kind of system that just wasn't working for you, some kind of belief system that wasn't working for you, some kind of value system that just wasn't resonating with you any longer. And again, you were probably experiencing strife and struggle and strain and all this other stuff that you just didn't want to experience anymore. And you put this intention out there that you wanted to experience happiness, you wanted to experience wealth and abundance and prosperity and all this good stuff in your life. So stuff started falling apart. Stuff started falling apart because of that, because you put out there that you wanted to experience something different. So when that difference happens, when the loss is created, it's being able to become enthusiastic, happy, or at least neutral about whatever's happening, and be detached from what it was that you had, because what you had is so much smaller than what you're going to be able to receive in the future for letting that go. But we have to make space for the beautiful things that come into our lives. If we want to have a better life, a more improved life, we have to let go of the small amount of things that we have in our life, the little that we have in our life, in order for us to open our arms for something greater. You're meant for something greater. You deserve something greater. If you believe it. And if you don't believe it, then you're never going to have it. And that's just the truth. Because deservability is based off of action, based off of what you believe you can achieve, or what you believe you should be able to receive. But if you're operating with a lot of lower natures, if you're operating out of resentment, if you're operating out of gossip, if you're operating out of self-sabotage, if you're operating out of manipulation and deceit and lying, if you're operating out of just being flaky in your commitments to yourself, to others, if you say you're going to show up and do stuff and you don't actually show up and do it, if you don't value your commitments that you make, no one else is making them, you made them. But if you don't follow through with them, then why would you be given beautiful things by your universe if they know that you're not even going to be able to follow through with it. Like, you requires responsibility. There's a good amount of responsibility is required for you to hold a higher value of resources, being given more resources by the universe, whether that be resources financially or resources in social status or resources in some other kind of material status or some kind of status of personage, like a feeling of authority. But this place of authority is coming from a good place. Someone who is humble with what they do. Someone who is also a leader, like a genuine leader, who empowers, who's here to serve, who's here to help create other leaders, help other people thrive in their lives. But we have to experience thriving in order for we to teach other people how to thrive. And if we don't see ourselves as someone that can thrive, if we're living in lack and debt and this feeling of suffering and feeling of struggle, then we're never going to be able to experience anything near thriving. So this could be also you understanding that if you're vibing with other people who are experiencing lack or experiencing oppression or experiencing sadness or experiencing these feelings of struggle and strife, that being around those people is not going to ever get you towards a life of thriving. You have to find people who are thriving, and whatever that is, whether that be in their financial health, their physical health, their emotional health, their spiritual health. We have to seek out people who are already thriving and also add value to their lives. We're not there to just leech off of them and try to take from them what it is that they're doing, but we have to give back as well, because otherwise they're not going to want to be around us if we're coming with all this illness. Because illness doesn't also have to be like a physical illness. This can be a spiritual illness or a financial illness or an emotional illness or a social illness. Illness is something in our lives that is not aligned. Again, like dis-ease. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's from this place of struggle and strife and stress and hard work. Hard work. Hard work is never going to get you towards freedom and liberation and thriving. You may work yourself very hard to have a little bit. Maybe you'll have some kind of success, but that's also something that is relatively speaking. But it'll never be freedom. It'll never be wealth. You may have riches, but there's people out there who maybe even own their own businesses, who have a decent amount of money, millions, even billions of dollars, but they're a slave to their business. They're a slave to their business. They're not business owners. Yeah, maybe on paper, they created the business. They're co-founders of the business, but they're slaves to their business. They're not wealthy in that regard, because they're taught hard work is going to give them some kind of status. And maybe they do it for the optics, right? Public optics. Maybe this is something you can relate to. Maybe you're starting up your own kind of business, or you're starting up some kind of endeavor that you want to do. Maybe you're an artist, or you're some kind of person who's trying to, and that's the word, right? Trying. Maybe you're trying to do this, or you're trying to do that, instead of actually just doing it and being that authentic version of yourself, being like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I want to show up in the world as. This person who empowers, who serves, who gives back, who has something very powerful to offer. And also make it very clear to other people that this is what you've come to do. This is like what you're here to bring the world, and speak that. Whenever you're doing something, speaking with confidence, speaking with certainty that this is what I do. And anyone who doesn't value that, anyone who doesn't see that, anyone who doesn't appreciate that, that's okay. They don't have to. They're not meant to. But at the same time, you're here to be available for the people who will resonate with that, who will see the value that you have, who will see the authenticity that you have. So it's also very important that if anyone's out there who's trying to make you feel like you can't accomplish your goals or your dreams or your desires, When you're actively seeking them, then those people, they're just not meant to be in your life. And that's okay. But they don't understand what you've come here to do, the purpose that you've come here to serve. Serve, serve, serve. That's what's really important. How much value can you add back to other people? How much can you give? We can't expect to receive a lot of stuff in our lives if we're not willing to give back. We can't just hoard things in our lives, because that will manifest and create more dis-ease, where we're feeling out of ease with our lives and other people and ourselves and our spirits. We're not here just to obtain and acquire and have these metrics, have this status, have these optics that we can show other people of what we've done in our lives, so that way we can have some kind of badge of honor of how hard we worked and how much grit that we did, so that way we can try to be impressive. The people who are impressed by that are also people who are in these perpetual loops of lack and of poverty, of illness and of disease. Society can train you to be comfortable with dis-ease, to be comfortable with illness, to be comfortable with lack, to be comfortable with having to overwork yourself and have these belief systems that keep you trapped in this perpetual state of the hamster wheel of never actually feeling and experiencing ease and comfort and thriving and wealth and abundance, because we become slaves to the hard work. We become slaves to these things that are tried to be taught to us by society, that suffering is required for us to have some sort of acknowledgement or some sort of respect. And again, people can go out there, they can chase it. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a valid way to live life. 100%. Nothing wrong with that. And I'm also not here to put a value statement on saying that that's wrong. It's not wrong. It's a definite way to experience life. If you choose to experience life that way, 100%, we can go do that. Many of us have tried to already do that. But being very aware of ourselves, like, did that bring us fulfillment? Or did this bring us a sense of pseudo fulfillment, where we feel fulfilled only because we accomplished something that we're told to accomplish? But deep down inside, when we look at our spirit, when we look at our soul, when we look at our hearts, it's like the amount of struggle and effort and strain and sacrifice and hardship that we had to endure in order to have the whatever it is that we accomplished. It can feel very hollow or temporary. It's not sustainable. It doesn't last. Maybe whatever it is that we chase could have also caused us to do very harsh things to other people, treat other people very harshly, treat ourselves very harshly, treat life very harshly. But we got what it is that we were told that we should have desired. But then we realize that the demoralization that it caused within ourselves, within our hearts, within our souls, it doesn't make us feel like authentically we showed up in the world authentically. So realizing that we don't have to give up our value systems, we don't have to give up our principles in order to be provided for, supported by life in abundant ways, in prosperous ways, in wealthy ways. That if someone tries to convince us that we have to suffer, that we have to work hard, that we have to do something that's just unsustainable for us to experience all of the beautiful things in life, that we can just be like, no, we're not going to do this today. We're not going to play this game. Go convince someone else to do that, but we're not going to do this here, okay? You understand? We're not going to do this here. I'm not going to do this anyway. If you want to do this, if this is what you believe, go live that life. That's perfectly fine. But within suffering, there will only be more suffering that's manufactured. Again, A tree will only bear the fruit of its seeds that is planted in the ground. If you plant suffering, you're only going to get more suffering. You can't hard work yourself into a life of ease. You can't struggle your way into a state of thriving. You can't hurt yourself into a way of prosperity. Now, in life, there are going to be times that we do things that we're not familiar with or can feel uncomfortable, but there are certain things that we have to do in order to have certain results. For instance, even exercising, to build up your body, you have to go to do specific exercises that train your muscles. And it can feel uneasy if we define it as uneasy. It can feel like a struggle if we define it as a struggle. But ultimately, that's not what it is. We're healing ourselves. We're strengthening ourselves. We are encouraging our bodies to become very, very healthy, very nurtured. We nurture our bodies. We love our bodies. We take care of it's a form of self-care. It's how we define it, our relationship with exercise. People who don't like to exercise define exercise as painful, as hard, as suffering, as uncomfortable. And that's why even whenever they do go out and they exercise, they may not ever get the results that they truly desire because of their relationship with exercise. But then the people who have amazing physiques, their relationship with exercise is something that is of self-care, is of good health, that is something that is desirable because it strengthens them. It makes them feel confident. It makes them feel secure within themselves. There's a different relationship they have with the form of exercise. And that creates their belief systems to begin formulating their bodies to show up physically in this image that they truly desire. They also start redeveloping their relationship with their diet, the foods they have to eat in order to sustain the body that they desire. Foods that perhaps other people may feel they couldn't eat or they couldn't feel comfortable maintaining. They feel like it's too restrictive or there's too much discipline, there's too small of a window of foods that can be consumed. But the diet is something that is required in order to have the results that they're seeking. And right now I'm using this analogy of the body, right? Exercise and diet. But this is exercise that can be applied to any aspect of your life. Exercise of your relationships, exercise of your finances, exercise of your spirituality, right? Diet of your finances, diet of your spirituality, diet of your emotional natures, diet of your relationships. This same concepts can be applied to so many different facets of your life. But if you want to have thriving relationships, then there's a specific diet that you have to show up as in these relationships. Certain kind of foods that you bring to the table. If you want a relationship to thrive, you don't pour in suffering and hardship and negativity and resentment and frustration and lying and deceit and manipulation and oppression. You don't pour those things into a relationship in order for it to thrive. You can't plant those things in a relationship. It won't be a thriving relationship. There's a specific diet that is required for it to be healthy. To have a healthy relationship, you have a diet of support, a diet of empowerment, a diet of laughter, of good cheer, a diet of being available to pour into that relationship, a kindness, a generosity, an upliftment. You pour these things. You have this diet that you pour into the relationship for it to thrive, for it to blossom, for it to bloom. So becoming very aware of what diets that we have with these different facets of our lives. What is the diet that we pour into our relationships? What is the diet that we pour into our spirituality? What is the diet that we pour into our finances? That's a huge one, finances. What's our diet with our finances? Did we just spend without any consideration with how our finances are going to affect us in the long term? And then we get ourselves into debt. We get ourselves into always having to live month to month to month to month. Working to live, living to work. And just stuck in these cycles where it's like you feel like you're never getting ahead. But then there's specific diets of finances that get people into places where they become financially free, where they become the individual who controls their lives. They get to show up where they want to show up. They get to go where they want to go. They get to eat what they want to eat, when they want to, how they want to. They get to travel to the places they want to. They get to provide for their family the way they want to. Whatever clothes they want to buy. Whatever vacations they want to have. Whatever foods they want to eat. Whatever extracurricular activities they want to experience. Whatever entertainment things they would like to experience. In abundance. In abundance. And they're never in debt. They're never in struggle or strife or strain. There's specific diets that we have to have and feed our finances in order for us to become the state of free. Like having a good relationship with our finances too. If we're always feeling this struggle or stress about finances, we're only ever going to get more struggle and stress. But if we start loving our finances, we start appreciating our finances, we start being grateful for the finances that we have, we start giving our finances away generously, not with a back burner, not out of fear, not out of like, oh, if I give this money away, I don't know. It's just perpetual, like having a good relationship with money is going to give us more money. Being thankful for money in our lives, being thankful for the finances that we have, that we can contribute, that we can be generous with our finances, that we can tip a little more, that we can provide other people a little bit more. Knowing that we're going to be given more finances. That's how we get more in our lives, because we become stewards of the stuff that we have. But if we're living in debt, why would the universe want to give us more stuff? For we can get in deeper debt? It doesn't make sense. This is just like in anything in life. No one's going to want to lend us money if our credit scores are trash, right? The bank's not going to want to lend us money if we don't have a track record of being able to manage money properly. If we have a bad diet, a bad management of our finances, we're not going to be given more from God, from the universe. We're not going to be given more even from fucking people. We have to have respect for that stuff. Have a specific diet, have a specific reason for us to spend certain things and give in certain ways. All this stuff goes deeper. This is very, very... This is about definitions right now. Our definition, our relationship to these facets of our lives. But this is what's very beautiful, is this, all of this, definitions, gets to really determine, well, who do we have in our lives? Are there people who are allowing us to, supporting us in our diets with our finances, or in our diets with our relationships? Or maybe there's people around us to show us an example of what it is to have a healthy diet with our finances. People who are generous, people who are always thriving, people who have so much coming in that they're always giving. In their relationships, they always have good relationships. People want to be around them. People want to be inviting them to specific places, to specific parties, to specific events, because they're nurturing, because they're caring, because they're generous with their time. Generous as people. They want to empower people. Their energy is valued there. Being around people who have emotional health as well, like that they're in tune with themselves. They're in a very good place within their minds and their souls. They're happy with their lives. They're excited about their lives. They're passionate about their lives. All this stuff is just, again, definitions, and being very clear with whatever it is in our lives that we maybe currently feel uncomfortable. Why is it that we feel uncomfortable? Why are we defining a relationship with this thing uncomfortable? Is there certain things that we need to change? Is there certain people we need to remove? Are there certain things that got to go in order for us to become, invite in, make space for the life where we are thriving, where we're wealthy, abundant, and prosperous? And asking ourselves, if there's something in our lives that feels uncomfortable, why does it feel uncomfortable? Because obviously if it feels uncomfortable, there's something that just isn't resonating. Maybe at one point it did, but maybe it just doesn't any longer. And asking ourselves, why is it not resonating anymore? What is it about this facet of my life? Whether that be my financial health, my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health, my social health, whatever it is in our lives. What is it about this relationship that we have with this facet of our lives that is causing this discomfort, that's causing this ease, that's causing this feeling of illness, that's causing this feeling of unmanageability even? What am I doing that I keep on doing? Apparently, I'm probably just doing the same thing over and over, because we can be creatures of habit. We have the same habits over and over and over, and we're getting the same result over and over and over. And maybe we're just very strong in this specific habit, in this facet of our lives, but it's obviously not working because it doesn't feel good. And we need to change it. So what do we need to change, and how can we change it? And also looking for examples out there of people who have that facet of their lives that looks like it's in control, that it's prosperous, that it is abundant, that it is wealthy. And what are they doing? Being questionable about what they are doing in their lives that is causing them to have this experience that is favorable. And once we understand the favorable things in our lives, we get to apply those things. We get to have a healthy diet with those things. And understanding again, we will only get the harvests of the seeds that we plant. So don't allow someone else to convince you that you have to do things that don't resonate with your soul, with your spirit. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to work hard. You don't got to suffer. You don't got to do all of that stuff in order for you to experience thriving and wealth and prosperity, because you can't work hard into a life of ease. It doesn't work like that. If you work hard, you're only going to get more hard work ahead of you. It's never going to end. It's never going to end. But practicing ease, like what is ease in our lives? What is comfortable in our lives? What is the feeling of thriving? What would I need to do in order for my life to feel like it's thriving? And begin doing that. What is wealth? Like what would a wealthy person do in this situation, in this facet of their lives? Like how would they show up in their lives? If there's someone wealthy, again, in their body, for instance, what would they do in their lives? How would they show up in their lives? What kind of diet would they have to experience this wealthy, fruitful, thriving aspect of their lives? In their body, or in their finances, or their spiritual health, their emotional health, their physical health, all this stuff. And then any emotional state or any action that we take that causes an emotional state in our bodies that feels uneasy, causes dis-ease within us, realizing that thing, that action can no longer be a part of the equation, that it has to go. Because if it makes us feel uncomfortable, it's not a part of the equation of wealth. Because again, we can't get something that's uncomfortable from wealth, because then our definitions of wealth would be misaligned. We would think that in order for us to experience wealth, we have to experience dis-ease or uncomfortability or suffering or lack. And it's not possible. We have a bad definition, and that's why we keep getting more lack and suffering and illness and dis-ease. And we think like, oh, if dis-ease and uncomfortability and lack and all this suffering is required for us to experience wealth, then we don't want to experience wealth. Well, that's why a lot of people, they get bad definitions. They get taught, conditioned to believe that there's all this negative stuff that you have to do in order for you to experience wealth, and it's not true. It's just a bad belief. It's a bad definition that they have. Wealth is not supposed to feel uncomfortable. It's not supposed to feel hard. It's not supposed to feel like a struggle. It's something that feels comfortable. It's support. It's the knowledge, knowing that you're going to be supported all the time. You're going to be provided for all the time. And in extreme measures, like extreme measures. And whenever you have that much wealth, you just want to give your wealth away, because you know that it's always going to keep on coming back in. And you start giving from a place of generosity, a place of abundance, because you know that wealth, true wealth, never worries about that aspect of life, whether that be their finances or their physical health or their emotional health or their spiritual health, because wealth just knows that it's a generator. It's a generator of that vibration. It generates that vibration of wealth. It doesn't need to mix potions in this little cauldron and stir their little stick around in order to create these concoctions. It's just like, no, it's just wealth. It's just the vibration of wealth. You don't have to add all these ingredients, other ingredients. You have to add, a little bit of suffering, a little bit of pain, and a little bit of hardship. Stir it all together and I got wealth. It doesn't work like that. That's not the potion. That's not the concoction that gets you wealth. Only wealth can ever get you wealth. Only planting seeds of wealth will get you more wealth. Again, whether that be in your finances or your body, or your emotional health or your spiritual health, you already understand this message that's coming through. So whatever it is in your life right now that you feel that isn't resonating, that is bringing hardship and suffering and struggle and feelings of lack and feelings of fear in your life, determining what actions you're taking, what belief systems are you thinking currently about that facet of your life, and understanding by believing those same thoughts, those same situations over and over and over again, partaking in those actions over and over and over again, partaking in those habits, in those addictions over and over and over again, it's causing and perpetuating these painful experiences in your past. And those things must be removed. They have to be removed. And they have to be replaced with things that uplift you, that inspire you, that encourage you, that make you feel like a wealthy person. Having a certain diet that makes you feel like a wealthy person in that facet of your life. In your relationships, if you want to have wealthy relationships, showing up in your relationships with the diet, again, of support and kindness and generosity and happiness and laughter and good cheer and encouragement. Allowing people to feel good about themselves. Allowing people to feel good for themselves. Helping them in the ways that you can to help them feel better about themselves. And also choosing people who already understand this concept and who already can perpetuate and generate the vibrations of wealth within themselves already. This is not about us going out there and trying to fix anybody or make anyone feel something that they don't want to fix or change about themselves either. Because some people, they may not want to change, and it's not our objective to force anyone to change if they don't want to change. But we can still be kind to people. We can still be generous with people. We can still be loving and caring to people and compassionate for those who don't want to change, or at least not in a position where they are ready to change. Within their own timing, maybe they will get there, but maybe they'll never get there. And that's okay too. If someone chooses not to change, not to become a version of themselves that is wealthy, that's okay too. But we can still be an example within our own lives of what it is to be wealthy for other people who want to change. Just like other people who hold the vibration for us to see as an example of what it is of someone who is actually thriving in their physical health, in their financial health, in their emotional health, in their spiritual health. There's examples already all around the world that we can look at, people who are already thriving in those aspects of their lives, and we be grateful. We can become grateful for those people that they've found that vibration and they're holding that vibration as a reflection, as a mirror for us to be seeing aspects that we can begin to choose in our own lives and follow in our own lives so that we too can reflect that vibration. But they generate it. They generate it. And we can learn how to generate that as well. And choosing to generate that. And then anything else that's in opposition of that, we just release and we let go. We don't even have to, again, we don't have to put a value statement on it. If something isn't serving us and something that doesn't feel good for us, that is uncomfortable to us, we don't have to say that that's negative. And if anyone else chooses to experience those things that are hurtful or self-betrayal or deceitful or manipulative or any of that other stuff, if they choose to do that within their own lives, that's fine. That's fine. We don't have to associate with that. We don't have to admonish that. We don't have to point fingers and say that that's wrong or that's not what someone should be doing. If they choose to do it, that's their choice. But we have the ability to control our own lives. And if we don't choose or wish to choose something that's hurtful for us, then we don't have to. And we can let people know that. Let people know like what is right for you in your life. And that, again, if someone else wants to do something that is the opposite of what is right for you in your life, knowing what is right for you in your life, what would keep your spiritual diet, your emotional diet, your financial diet, your relationship diet in check. Having the choice to know yourself so well that you're not susceptible to anyone else's lives, what their life path wishes to be. If it doesn't align with you, if it doesn't feel like it serves you, if it doesn't serve you, then you don't have to participate. This is all participation. You don't have to participate. Choose what you participate in and choose the things that bring you comfort, that bring you happiness, that bring you feelings of contentment and feelings of thriving, feelings of wealth in your life. And if someone's trying to get you to do something that is opposite of that, just be like, look, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. 'Cause I know myself. I mean, for you, it may be something that works in your life, but I know for a fact in my life, it doesn't. I've tried it before a number of times, more than likely, right? I've tried it before. It just doesn't work. I'm not going to do this. That's it. I'm not devaluing the fact that you do it. I'm not shaming you for doing it. I'm not saying that you're wrong for doing it or anything like that. Like, I'm happy that you can do it. I'm happy maybe you do it for both of us, because I can't do it. Because I know that whenever I do that, it doesn't feel aligned with me. So go do that for both of us. Go enjoy that for both of us. And just like staying with your values and staying with your principles. And the right people are going to respect your values and your principles. And people who don't respect your values and principles, people who try to get you to do things that aren't in alignment with what is right for you in your life, that you've chosen for your life, people who try to get you to do stuff that's opposite of that, they're not working in your best interests. And those energies should not be around you. You shouldn't give them the time or the energy. Again, not putting a value statement on them. They can go and do that if they want to. That's their choice. But you understand that You're not going to participate in those dynamics. You're not going to participate. Like, that's fine. You know, that's something they can go do with someone else. That's their choice. That's their choice. They got the prerogative to do that. But you're not going to do that. That's just it. I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm not going to do that. Because you know yourself. You know what allows you to thrive. You know what allows you to be wealthy. You know what raises your spirit, that makes you feel good about yourself, makes you feel that you show up in the world in a way out of integrity and morality and values and principles. There's so many people out there who don't have strong values or principles or morals in their life, and that's fine. That's fine. Again, it's the choice that they're making within their own lives. But we can't expect other people to have the values that we have and the principles that we have and the morals that we have. And they probably don't want them anyway, because we require most people to look at things that they maybe aren't willing to look at. And that's fine. Same thing goes for us. If we're not willing to look at certain things about ourselves, then the values that we have will never be able to change. We have to look at things that maybe we're doing in our lives that are harmful to ourselves or other people and change those. Be willing to do different things. Participate in different habits. Participate in different beliefs. And ask ourselves, like, what would a wealthy person, a prosperous person, someone who's thriving, do differently? How would they show up in the world differently? How would they treat people differently? Which ways would wealthy people treat other people? How would they treat themselves? How would they show up in life? And understanding that wealth should be something that's very highly valued and very highly favored. And that if we have an ill feeling towards what wealth is, then we have to look at that and be like, why is it that I feel that wealth is something that is horrible or something that is not to be admired or not to be something I should push away? Maybe there's an example out there that where we think certain wealthy people is someone who has some kind of status or some kind of financial figure that their net worth is. But net worth doesn't equate wealth. It doesn't equate wealth. There's a lot of poor people who are completely horrible people, and there's a lot of rich people who are completely horrible people. But there are a lot of rich people who are completely fantastic people, and there's a lot of poor people, like financially poor people, who are extremely generous people, caring people. So better terminology would not be rich and poor, but again, just wealth. Like wealth would be someone, regardless of what their financial status is, regardless how much money they have in the bank account, wealth is something, again, it's based off of character, it's based off of merit, it's based off of moral codes and values. So if you're someone who maybe thinks that certain wealthy people who have like money or status or power are terrible people, and they might be very terrible people, also understanding there's people that live under the bridge, who live in trap houses, who live like on the streets, who are drug addicts, who are also very terrible people, and they don't have a lot of money, but they do horrible shit. So what's the difference between the people who are doing horrible stuff, who don't have a lot, compared to the people who have a lot, they're still doing horrible stuff? Not much. They're the same people. They just have different means to do it, to live those horrible lives. But again, same thing. There's a lot of people out there who don't have a lot of status, or they don't have a lot of material possessions, or they don't have a lot of money, who are great people, fantastic people, genuinely, truly wealthy people. Because again, wealth is something that should be tapped into all facets of life. in their values. They're wealthy in their values. They're wealthy in their spirituality. They're wealthy in their mindset. They're wealthy in their generosity towards other people. That's what a wealthy person does. But there's also wealthy people who have all those aspects. They're generous, they're considerate, they're kind, they're giving, they're nurturing, and they have finances, and they have means, the physical means, emotional means, tangible means. So really checking what our definitions are with wealth and understanding that wealth is something that is on a case-by-case basis, person by person. And wealth is not something that is dependent on a dollar figure or dependent on some status or dependent on some kind of allocate that someone should or should not have. But determining the wealth of a person based off of how they show up in the world, how they treat themselves, how they treat other people. And understanding that a true wealthy person treats people with kindness and generosity and care and compassion and love and gratitude and thankfulness and all this beautiful stuff, regardless of, again, what they have or what they don't have in the material sense. That they're kind, they're giving, they're generous, they're here for the empowerment of others. That they live a life that is actually empowered and thriving and abundant, that they're free. They're free, they're happy, they're considerate, they're kind people. Because wealth, the vibration of wealth is just something that is just so supportive because it knows it's always going to have. It's never in lack. Wealth can never be in lack. It has so much time. It has so much energy. It has so much finances. It has so much finances. Whatever amount that is, whether that be $10 million or $10. But they feel like they have so much to give and they're willing to give what they have. Because they feel wealthy. Because they have the vibration of wealth. That's what wealth is. And again, the different facets of a person's life. They just have so much wealth, they want to give that vibration away. To be a reflection of it. To be the generator of it. So, that's what I want to share today. And I'll expand on this as more comes in. Thank you so much for listening to this video, hearing it. Leave a comment, subscribe, like this video, and I'll catch you here in the next one.